Welcome to the PACOM podcast. We are medical management radio for the solo provider and small group physician practice. PACOM is where medicine meets entrepreneurship. Now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PACOM podcast, Medical Management Radio. PACOM is the Professional Association of Healthcare Office Management. I'm your host, Terry Fletcher. Happy New Year, everyone. 2020 is not only a new year, but a new decade, and we're going to call it 2020 Vision, as we really focus on what the CMM credential can do for you and your career development, what having a certified medical manager running your office can do for you and your medical practice, and really what the benefits are that can be obtained by being a leader in the industry through the PACOM opportunities. I would like to introduce my guest joining me today, Ms. Colby Bennett. Colby is a National Advisory Board member for PACOM and the 2020 chairman. She's a certified medical office manager and the president of the Rockville chapter of PACOM. She holds positions and contributes to state and local politics and is currently the practice manager for a primary care practice in Montgomery County, Maryland. Colby has a wealth of knowledge with her over 15 years in the practice management industry and is here to talk to us today about what it means to be a certified medical manager in today's medical practice. Colby, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Terry. Thank you for having me.
Happy New Year to you and welcome to 2020. We're really happy to have you today.
I'm so excited to be here. We finally made it to the year of perfect vision. What a great time to be alive. The roaring 20s all over again.
We are. I'm very excited to be here too. And just so everybody knows, the 2020 vision, that actually came from Colby. When we first started our conversation, she had put it in something we were talking about and just mentioned. I said that was a great kind of segue into what we're going to talk about today. And what was really exciting about our first, conversation into looking at the CMM and what it can do for you is I wanted to get Colby's insight this week. So I want to start with her capacity being in the trenches with many of you office managers. She knows what it's like. She's not just talking from a platform, but basically being there and doing the job. So in your capacity, Colby, as the new chairman of PACOM, by the way, congratulations on that. What is your message to the certified medical managers that are out there or the office and practice managers who are heading into this new year with so much on their plate, but needing to really make that commitment to become a CMM, and why?
Becoming a CMM is very important to your own professional development. In order to lead a successful medical practice, you too have to feel fulfilled. It's one thing that we all spend our time training our staff, making sure that our revenue cycles are good and we're getting every available dollar for every type of visit that we have. But at some point, you have to sit back and take a look at where you're going with your career. Yes, taking the CMM is a big step in that direction. I won't kid you, the test is hard. It's absolutely a difficult test, but it is not a test that you can't pass. Hundreds of us have. The 9 domains are things that you do every single day. You may not call it by those names, but it is exactly what you do every single day. This test and this credential means that you've reached a level of mastery of those things, and it means something to you in the marketplace. It means something to the people who employ us. It means something to people who we mentor. It means something to our industry. It's very important that we keep our eyes on the prize. It's easy enough to get bogged down in the day-to-day, but when was the last time that you did something for yourself that proved your level of competence in our industry? Earning that CMM is absolutely that.
I love that response because it's bringing the job forefront into more of a career forefront. And I think that a lot of office managers right now are really looking at their position as more of a job. And I think for those managers out there, whether it be practice managers, office managers, administrators, your capacity is being in charge, even if it's considered a supervisor, but to have the management kind of title, whether it be formally or informally, getting this for yourself, not only to me is for the title, but Colby, wouldn't you agree that it's what it brings to basically your career opportunities, but also what it brings to the office or the practice that you're managing?
Without question, I am very fortunate. I myself am a CMM, but there are 3 other PACOM people who work in my office. And that's purposeful. When I'm looking to hire to extend our team and there's someone who says that they're a PACOMer that applies, they have my undivided attention because I know that they know things that people who are not PACOM don't know. It gives us an opportunity as an organization to breathe life into this credential, this CMM that we talk about all of the time. It really is a living credential. Every time I give a speech at a provider meeting, every time I take on a new manager and mentor that manager, or speak at a chapter meeting, or recruit new managers, I'm adding value to that CMM. So when you do step out and say, okay, I'm going to make the commitment to study up, because you're going to have to study, make no doubt about it. You probably will have to dedicate about, let's say, 2-3 hours a week to get yourself in a position where you're feeling comfortable when you walk into the test. But once you study and you become confident that you know a lot more than you think you know, and the small things that you didn't know, you now know, it is an amazing feeling to see all of your experience come through on this test, and you're going, okay, I know the answer to 1. I know the answer to 15. Hey, I'm on 35 and I still know the answers, because it's something that we do every day. Everyone has an opportunity in this lifetime to choose a career path. And becoming a medical manager is absolutely a career path. We have to know a lot of things: revenue management, risk management, HR, and that, changes every year, finances, contract management, technology and data, reporting our clinical performance, which seems to change every quarter. All of these things, in addition to being compassionate leaders, in addition to mentoring our staff and working with our providers and growing your practices, all of that comes to one big head, and you get to say, either this is what I want to do for a living and I'm going to dedicate myself and take the time to invest in my own professional development and earn that CMM, or I'm just going to kind of watch what happens across the industry with people who just kind of manage their practice and are kind of happy in that particular role. And there's no shame in either role that you choose, but for those of us who are career minded, and I know most of PACOM, if not all of PACOM, is career minded, this is a credential that you need to move forward. It is extraordinarily valuable. It makes you stand apart from everyone else in the marketplace. It absolutely does.
Yeah, and I would agree. And the one thing that I noticed about the CMM and just the PACOM organization that's different from, let's say, the credentialing bodies that I'm part of, is the networking and the feeling of community. I find that there's all kinds of mentors out there. If you need help with anything, there are people from the website that you can, immediately contact, and they're really willing to help you instead of kind of pushing you off in another direction. Would you find that to be the case?
Absolutely. That's PACOM's tagline is PACOM shares knowledge, and nothing could be more true. When I first started with PACOM, one of the things that I valued most about it was the listserv. The fact that I could reach out to a group of managers who are at that point much more skilled, much more experienced than I was, and ask a question. And no one made me feel less than for asking that question. But I had a bevy of answers from across the nation that said, listen, you can email me, you can call me, do this, do that, watch this webinar. That in and of itself is priceless. The support that you get, even when you're doing things, opening a new office or closing an office, both of those things are very traumatic for a medical manager. It requires a level of selflessness in both instances that, it's introspective. You look at yourself and go, man, how did I get here if the practice is closing? Or, what was I thinking if you're opening another practice and still trying to manage the practice, where your workers actually work? It's a lot. But when you reach out and say, hey, I'm kind of drowning, what do I do next? Where do I find this type of provider? What kind of paperwork do I need to file? You have access to hundreds of managers who've lived through that experience, who can give you valuable information that you would not find, let's say, in a Google search or in a manual that says this is how you close your practice. Having that human touch is one of the many things that sets PACOM apart from a lot of the other professional medical office management organizations.
Yeah, and I would agree. And just even some of the things that you said, just to add to that, I get calls daily from practices, and my background is heavy coding and auditing, but also practice management. And I get calls daily from offices and practices that say, "Hey, we're having a problem. We're not understanding why our collections have gone down. Can you take a look and see what's happened?" And I come in and I'm talking to the office manager, who a lot of times may be a physician's wife or a family member or somebody that came up through first to the front desk, maybe in the billing office, and now they kind of by default are an office manager. And then we find that they use the incorrect tax ID, or they're being asked to take on another specialty in the office. And they're like, we don't know what to do. And just those little things can make or break a practice. And so I think it's important that, the medical managers that are listening, or the potential managers, or anybody that is considering going even into management in a medical practice, understand that PACOM is there for you. They have a network system. They have, like you said, the support to really help you navigate through that in your career, and to hopefully help that office as well. So I wanted to talk to you about the certified office manager. I know you've been the CMM for a while now, and you've had that credential. But what have you seen is the biggest change for you as a manager of a medical practice, let's say in the past 5 years?
I would say the biggest change would not be our coding switch from ICD-9 to ICD-10. It would most likely be the millennials and their cell phones. It has been.
I'm sorry, I have to laugh at that because, okay, you guys should know, and since we're having a conversation, Colby and I had a really long conversation about this, and I think you're going to really like her take on this, because it's something that triggered kind of a funny conversation between the both of us, because it's not something that I probably would have considered. And so go ahead. I just think it was a funny conversation. I'm really excited for everybody to hear your take on it.
So I think, anytime that there's a generational switch, and we have definitely here in the United States lived through a huge shift toward technology and being a bit more in touch with your emotions than, people like me as a Gen Xer. Our rap was that we were aloof, that we didn't care. We just kind of wanted to live our lives and be happy. And we've not seen anything like the group of young professionals that have invaded our industry like a plague of locusts of biblical proportions. Some people see it that
invaded.
But what I get is in my practice, I have almost exclusively a millennial staff and their cell phones. So I had to make a decision. At this point, do I try to bend the talent that I have into my management style, or do I embrace them where they are? And the cell phone is the perfect example. In most medical offices, cell phones are forbidden. You can't have your cell phone at your desk. You have to leave it in your purse, in your car. You have to turn it off. I can tell you that cell phone use in my office is the primary way that we communicate with one another. If someone in my office is doing something that I want to say, hey, great job, I'll send them a funny meme or a GIF and say, wonderful work. When I want to communicate with my doctor, when he's not actually working as fast as I'd like for him to work, I'll send him, a dollar sign that's falling out of the sky. It is very effective way to communicate. Now, do I get employees and staff members who sometimes spend a little bit more time on their cellular phones or their Apple Watches than I would like? Of course. So I do keep an eye out for people who are kind of abusing our cell phone privileges. However, I send them a text message and say, hey, I need you to focus in. We need your help today to make today a great day. And that's enough to make them get off of their cell phones, to kind of refocus them. Yes, there are a lot of knocks on millennials. People say that they have a short attention span, this adult onset ADHD that they have. But I find that using that short attention span is kind of like their superpower. If I have a task that needs to be done and it requires laser precision focus for only a few minutes, they are my go-to people. They absolutely are my go-to people. They see the world from a different perspective. And at some point as managers, we have to ask ourselves, what we can do with this boundless talent and this group of people who are so focused on how they feel. They're very compassionate and they're very tech savvy. It's a win. It's a win-win-win for everybody across the board. Having them in your office is a beautiful thing. It makes everyone a little bit more comfortable. Embrace the cell phone. It's not a bad thing. It really isn't. It really isn't.
I love that conversation. I think how this conversation came up, just so our listeners know, is that when I was introduced to Coley, I was given a phone number to get a hold of her, and I thought it was her cell phone. Turns out it was her office line. Well, I had called a couple times, and I was disconnected. And I was like, okay, maybe her cell phone is dropping a call. Well, the third time I was connected, and it was to her office. And I mentioned when they transferred me to her, I said, yeah, I couldn't get a hold of you. It hung up on me the first two times. And you laughed. You said, well, I've had to explain to my front office how to actually answer and pick up a phone. I was like, excuse me? So that was a funny conversation, lead in to the cell phone conversation.
It's very true. So, millennials don't answer their phone. You have to literally text them to say, hey, I'm going to call you. They generally text you back like, why would you want to call me? What do you have to say? Please forgive me. My staff, they know I love them to death. I absolutely adore my staff. But I have one young nursing student who will be leaving me very soon. Her name is Busayo. Busayo is so very millennial. When our phone rings, she looks at the caller ID first. And this is our office phone. She kind of ponders whether or not she should answer it. And say, answer it. It's for you. So she picks it up and she sounds so surprised that there's another human being on the other line. But this is not a skill that they have. This is not something that is second nature to them. Again, as a Gen Xer, you would be hard pressed to walk past a ringing phone. And this is before the idea of caller ID. If it rang, we picked it up and hoped it was for us and not for someone else in our family, because we may have had a little call waiting or three-way calling, but none of this thing where you can have group chats and talk to 6, 8, 10 people at one time. We didn't have that technology. So now I'm tasked with wonderfully supportive and compassionate staff members. When the phone rings, they look at the phone like, okay, I wonder who it is. Like, pick up the phone.
I love that. I'm glad. It sounds like you've really adapted to the change that's, that we've had to come forward, and actually just understand that here's where we are and make it a positive. So I really appreciate your adaptation and your response to that. That was great. So one of the things I like to get our listeners to be goal oriented. And in the last couple of episodes, we talked about this, when you tackle a new day, a new week, and now we're in a new year and a new decade, I like to make lists so I can cross something off the list. That's just something that I really like to do. It makes me feel accomplished. And unfortunately, I have long lists. But what should be the top 3 goals, in your professional opinion, of any medical office manager as they look into the new year with 2020 vision? And I mean more staying competitive in the market and also innovative with new technology. I mean, we always know about, you have to update your books and you have to update your codes, et cetera, and update, like the meaningful use, all that. But when we're talking about new technology, competitive in, the market of medicine, what are your top 3 things that managers need to do?
Well, I would say get certified. That would be my first comment to you. Get certified and find yourself a PACOM chapter. And the reason why I say that is because there are so many changes that are coming very quickly toward our industry. I live here in Southern Maryland, just a bedroom community of Washington, D.C. So I kind of get an insider view of some of the legislative things that are happening, some of the regulatory things that are happening. And there are some significant challenges that are barreling toward us. And being connected will help you adapt and overcome. PACOMers are not people who are reactive. We are proactive. We get ahead of the game. In fact, we have a new ambassador program. And this ambassador program, we have 2 volunteers from PACOM who sit in on CMS's First Friday calls and their VIP program, or MVP program, so that we know what's coming, so that we can prepare and have our membership be prepared. Being certified, being a member of PACOM, gives you that opportunity to know what's coming, so it doesn't hit you like a ton of bricks, 60 days before you have to make significant changes to your EMR and train up your staff on something that's Greek to you. So get certified is my first thing I would say. Second thing I would say is embrace your technology. I laugh a lot about my millennials in the ringing telephone, but the truth of the matter is we text a lot of our patients. We do. We send text messages to remind them of appointments. We send. We don't hand out papers at the front desk. We put it all in the patient portal. You have to kind of embrace the technology. Using these tools help you run a smoother practice. And the more patients you can see, the more money you can make. And really, we are all in the business of selling medical advice. The doctors can be compassionate as well as our staff, but when it comes to the manager, we have to keep our eye on that bottom line. And the way that we do that is to make sure that we get every single available dollar out of the pool while still running a tight ship. More patients, see them easier, make sure that they're happy with the level of access to their own personal information. All of those things require that we embrace this new technology that's coming. Last but not least, consider embedding specialty into your practice. But if you're a specialist, consider embedding another specialty. If you have an opportunity to sit down and take a look at what your practice is doing, where are you growing to? It's not enough anymore just to be successful. You have to be successful with a plan for the next year, for the next 2 years, for the next 5 years. Most of my staff laugh about my plan for world domination. That's what they like to call it. But I keep it in a sparkly Kate Spade journal on my desk. These are all of my great ideas on how to grow our practice, how to educate my staff, to make sure that everybody is getting what they need to feel successful. So those would be my goals. Get yourself certified, maximize your revenue, embrace that technology. Those would be the 3 goals that I would set. I also am a goal setter. My personal goals would be to earn my HITCMPP through PACOM and a couple of other credentials. I'm looking at possibly adding on, Terry, what you have a lot of, some coding credentials. And if you guys haven't looked at Terry's bio, she has more letters behind her name. It is
I
so
call it alphabet soup. I know.
absolutely,
Geez.
absolute. But it speaks to your level of knowledge and your experience in your industry. And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want someone to look at your experience and say, wow, she's really got her finger on the pulse of coding? Because that was my first take when I looked at all the letters behind your name. I'm like, sheesh, maybe I should ask her about what coding credential I should have, But this is really what we need to do to grow into our profession. This is what we want to do. If this is your career path, make it just that. Make a plan, work the plan, and succeed. It sounds easy. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's well worth it.
And I would like to challenge the PACOM, potential members and anybody listening to this podcast. When Coley mentioned to find a chapter, you can go to a chapter meeting. I don't think there's going to be. Is there a charge at a chapter meeting? Just so I know.
Oh no, there's no charge to chapter meetings, none
Okay, I didn't know if
whatsoever.
there were dues. So you can show up to a chapter meeting, listen in, see if you like it, see if if the community is what you're looking for. To find that PACOM chapter, you go to pacom.com, pull the menu screen down. The very first option on the front page of that says membership and community. Click on that. Then you'll find chapters on the drop down screen, and right under that it'll say chapter directory. And you can find your state and hopefully your city or something close enough to you that you can take a look at that. The other thing about PACOM, which just floors me, because I am an association member for many different professional associations, and they range anywhere from 150 to 800 a year, and how much it costs to be a member. And PACOM is $19. You can join PACOM right now for $19. And so, what is that? 2 trips to Starbucks? And so, seriously, if you get a chance to join any kind of association, and this again is your career, I think you can invest $19. And I really challenge you to do that. And then look around, look at the newsletters, look at the website, look at the offering of the networking capabilities there, and then take a look at what it takes to be certified. But if you're looking for a place to start, become a member. It really has some amazing contacts and information for you. And I think that's important to start somewhere. Okay, so Coley, we really appreciate your insight and joining me today. I'm happy that you were able to take the time. I know We're in different parts of the country. So I'm in Southern California. Coley's all the way in Maryland. And so we kind of met in the middle with our producer today. So we appreciate Joe too. And thank you again for joining me on the podcast. And we hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me. It was a bunch of fun.
I also wanted to leave the listeners with this. In keeping with the PACOM motto of PACOM shares knowledge, you just heard from healthcare industry expert and PACOM National Advisory Board Chair Colby Bennett. And at PACOM, we want to remind you that you are responsible for the management of your practice. So if you know a physician or another office manager and you want them to get as much knowledge and current industry information as you can get, practice management knowledge as much as you can, this is your podcast. We hope you will let others know and encourage them to listen in each month. As a reminder, the PACOM podcast broadcasts the third Wednesday of each month. Also, please rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher Radio, and Google Podcasts, or wherever platform you listen to your podcasts on. So everyone, have a great month. We are really thankful for all of you and our listeners, and make it a great day and a great week, and we'll see you in February.
Tune in for new shows the third Wednesday of each month. Thank you for joining us. PACOM is the Professional Association of Healthcare Office Management and home of the nationally accredited Certified Medical Manager. Professional credentials matter. Learn more at PAHCOM.com. That's PAHCOM.com.